that nettle is the plant that protects and breaks an enchantment. And I feel like that with nettle. It's like, when we're coming back from states of like depletion, nettle is that plant that restores our vitality over time, that like gently.
Welcome to the Herbs with Rosalee podcast, a show exploring how herbs heal as medicine, as food, and through connecting with the living world around you. Well, this episode has story time. Not kidding, it's awesome. So you might want to brew yourself a little cup of, say, nettle tea, settle in, and listen with that part of you that enjoys a good tale. Because while nettle is often talked about as a simple, nourishing herb, there's something deeper here, something about how healing actually happens over time, not in quick fixes, but in this steady daily relationship. In this conversation with Juliet Howard, we explore how nettle has been used not just for nutrients, but for rebuilding, for restoration, and for those moments when life has taken more out of you than you might have expected. If you enjoy this episode, please give it a thumbs up so more plant lovers can find us, and be sure to stay tuned until the very end for your herbal tidbit. Juliet, thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to this.
Me too. Super excited.
Yeah. It was so lovely to meet you a month or two ago. Man, time flies. But we got to meet each other in Portland, and you just radiate so much joy and vitality. And I just knew I wanted to spend more time with you. And here we are. I'm just, so grateful. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rosalee. I was so thrilled that we got to meet at that folk methodology meetup. That was super lovely. And I just have to say at the top of this, just how inspirational I think you are as an herbalist and a person. Oh. And I'm so, so grateful for the work that you do and all of the voices that you highlight and just all of the current work you're doing on your own and all this fun work that you're doing with Mason. I just think that you're constantly inspiring and really pushing things in the herbalism community in such a positive way. So I'm just super, super stoked to be here and talk to you and get to know you better.
Well, this is my favorite way for a podcast to start.
Definitely. It's nice, you gotta.
Thank you.
It's important to tell people, what they mean to you. So.
Thank you so much. And well, I did, as I said, had the chance to meet you at the folk methodology meetup. But I don't know your story. I don't know how the plants called to you, and I'm looking forward to hearing how that unfolding has been for you.
Yeah. It's, there's no like one catalyst that brought me to the plants. But I always kind of think about, I got the privilege of getting to move to the Oregon coast when I was 6 years old. And we lived on this like pretty majestic, we lived on a cliff overlooking the ocean in a small cove. And so we got to actually like see whales, and my mom and I would go hunt for agates like when the tide was out. And it was, as a kid, and still as an adult, like such a magical place to grow up. Had a lot of, freedom. It was like the 90s, so I could bike everywhere and make forts and do all of that. So I think like very early on, without knowing it, I developed a really strong sense of place and felt very, very held by that place. I was, when I look back now as a mom with a 7-year-old, I was like out on the cliffs and near the ocean, and now I would of course be terrified, but I was never hurt, and it was always such a beautiful space to be in. And again, felt so deeply held and supported by that land and the plants that were on that land. And so I think that like in going back, I feel that sense, like I feel a coming home and a remembering from the land, which is such a beautiful way to feel. And now when I go back, I can be like, oh, there's salal, and there's coastal pine, and there's plantain, and all of these plants I grew up with and were, familiar with, but now I actually, know more about them, know their names. And so that I think was kind of the first foray into this love of plants, is that deep, deep connection to place. And then I like to mention this, but were you into like Return to Oz at all when you were younger, that movie?
Mm-mm.
Did you ever see? Okay. It's like Fairuza Balk, and it's like very wacky and weird. I highly recommend watching it. But part of it is that when they get to Oz, there is a lunchbox tree, and it's like the tree grows these little plant-like lunchboxes, and you peel them open, and there's like a little sandwich and these little snacks. And I was like floored, just fascinated by this concept. And I love to link that back because like that is exactly what herbalism is. It's like these plants are providing us with, our food, our nutrients, our clothing, our homes. Like they provide everything. And I feel like the lunchbox tree is like a perfect kind of little microcosm in a wild, wacky movie that really illustrates that. And it makes sense now that part of the movie is what always stuck with me. So I think like that little thing. But yeah, in growing up, in my 20s, I worked in a tea house. I managed a tea house and was really, really interested in all of the herbal infusions. There were these like apothecary blends, for liver support or immune support. And I was just very interested in that and started making my own blends and trying things out. And then that, of course, inevitably led to wanting to really step into it deeper. And so about 10 years ago, I got to do Rosemary's course through a local naturopath. And so it was really neat and she's a naturopath and herbalist, JJ Purcell, facilitated it. And we had a small group and we would meet monthly. And then in the meantime, do all of the homework and do a lot of stuff on our own. But that was the first kind of like formal entrance into education. And like, of course, starting with Rosemary Gladstar's program, which so many herbalists have, was such a gentle and beautiful way to start getting to know the plants. And so that started a path that, since then I haven't really stopped, and started studying with a lot more teachers and started, going to plant gatherings and like teaching at some and going to a lot of one-off classes and teaching my own little one-off classes and then just deeply communing with the plants in various ways. Some I just love working with the plants with like scent medicine. So I'm very, very into making hydrosols. I got like a copper still probably 4 or 5 years ago. And that's such a beautiful, like seasonal practice that I love. Also making like herbal oils, another way to really work with them, and more scent medicine. And then also really enjoy creating and making flower essences. And so, yeah, I've done lots of kind of product making as a way to commune with the plants. And yeah, and then most recently, that's just kind of led to writing this book, a book for kiddos, all about plant connection. Yes, thank you. The Girl Whose Garden Comes Alive. So that's the most recent project. Just felt like having a 7-year-old myself, getting to see her interact with the plants was really inspiring, and made me want to create something to give around, how to begin those connections. But yeah, so the path, I feel like there were lots of little sparkles, little things that were happening throughout my life that kind of led me to the plants, and, I'm so grateful. So yeah, and I would consider myself like a kind of seasonal, bioregional, backyard herbalist. I'm a big proponent of like a lot of the plants that you need are usually growing nearby, and that when we're able to connect and notice, we start really getting a lot of gifts from the natural world. But yeah.
Hey there. Just a quick note. If you'd like to hear from me in a more personal way, I'd love to have you in my free text community. I send a couple of texts every week, things like behind the scenes updates, herbal thoughts that I'm chewing on, and little sparks of joy I don't always share anywhere else. To join, just text the word ROOT to 1-509-383-8398. And if you ever want to break up, no hard feelings. Just text STOP to the same number and you'll be opted out immediately. My goal is to make it so juicy and so fun that you look forward to getting my texts each week. Okay, now back to the show. Well, it's very much reflected in your book. I'm looking forward to diving into that a little bit later. And I love that you chose Nettle for today. And
Yeah.
And I know you're gonna like take us in some different directions with Nettle too. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to like leave that open to you after that beautiful introduction. We'll just dive into the world of Nettle, Juliet.
I know this very rare plant, Nettle. I was, of course, like when we first spoke, I was thinking about like all these different plants to talk about. and ones that I, love, like also common, but like yarrow and elder and rose hips and all these plants. And nettle kept just being like, no, it's me. And I'm like, but of course, most herbalists know nettle and it's talked about all the time. And just because, which makes sense, it's such a gateway herb for so many people because of how healing and how restorative nettle is. But since it's been talked about so much, I was thinking that we could approach it from the way that, nettle shows up in story. I'm a big fan of like how plants show up in fairy tales and folklore and mythology, because I think that it really teaches us about the plant in both like a symbolic way, but that symbolic way can lead to practicality and these practical uses of the plant. And it also shows how different cultures like revered different plants for various reasons. And I just find that all so fascinating. Thinking of plants, like there's a story of when Prometheus like steals fire from the gods, and he steals it to give to the humans and hides it inside of dried fennel stalk. And like, what does that tell us about fennel? It's like when you dry it out, there's that pith inside that can still burn. So it can physically hold an ember. And just like mullein, it can, be dipped into animal fats or wax and be a torch plant. So there's a literal fire component, like bringing fire using fennel. But then like the way that fennel acts in the body as like this carminative, this helper in digestion, and like bringing that, digestive fire and helping that energy. So I just think that it's such a cool, way to look at like the way plants show up. Or like, of course, the tale of Achilles and yarrow, little Achilles, baby Achilles being dropped into the river Styx that was imbued with yarrow, making him indestructible except for his heel, Achilles' heel, where he was being held. And like how much that teaches us about yarrow, like the practical uses where it can in many ways make you indestructible. I had a time where I like nearly cut off this finger. The first thing I did was go to the garden and pack it with yarrow and wrap it up and go to the hospital. And it immediately stopped the bleeding and helped with infection. So that makes me feel indestructible with the help of yarrow. Mm-hmm. And then just the protective feel of yarrow. Energetically, yarrow is such a protective plant. And I think that that's also really comes across in that story. So just like two little examples of plants in story. And there's so many. It's like such a fun thing I want to continue to research. But with nettle, I thought it would be fun to tell the story of the Wild Swans, like with Eliza, her 11 brothers. It's Hans Christian Andersen story from the 1800s, but I think it's a bit older than that. I think he pulled parts from other folk tales, but nettle plays a really big role. So I was thinking I could kind of tell the story. It's very long, so I'm going to try to condense it in parts. And then we could kind of chat about how nettle shows up, and then how nettle's shown up in my life. And I'd love to also know how it's shown up in your life. But
this sounds lovely. I wish I had a bowl of popcorn. Just
I know, right?
Probably no one else needs to hear me chewing popcorn while you're telling a story.
I was like, should I like put on a theatrical performance? Yes, once long ago. But yeah, all right. So long ago, there was a king who had 11 sons and one daughter, Eliza. And they lived in a beautiful palace, and they had everything that they could ever desire. But unfortunately, as these tales go, the mother died and the father married a very, very wicked woman who very quickly banished Eliza to live with peasants outside of the village and turned all 11 brothers into swans who had to fly away from this beautiful kingdom. And when this happened, Eliza was with the peasants, and when she was around 15, she was finally able to go back to the palace and kind of search around. And of course, all she could think about were her 11 brothers and how she missed them and wanted to reunite with them. So she was asking around, and she met an old woman in the woods who had a bowl of berries that she offered to Eliza. And Eliza asked, "Have you seen 11 men, princes, riding through these woods? I'm looking for them." And she said, "No, but I've seen 11 swans with little golden crowns flying into the river just down the way." And so Eliza decides she's going to go check out these swans. And so she walks over there, and it's nearing the end of day. So we're at sunset, and she's kind of hiding a bit and watching this river. And she sees these 11 swans fly in. And as they hit the ground and the sun sets, they turn back into their human form. They shed all of these swan feathers, and they're back to her brothers. And she runs out and she reunites with them. And they all, of course, now understand what this wicked woman has done to all of them, that these brothers are under this deep enchantment, that they can only come into their human form in the night. And so they commune, and Eliza wants so deeply to know how to heal her brothers, how to break this enchantment. And so she asks and she prays and she hopes that she can find a solution. And she has a dream, and in the dream, she's visited by a fairy, some mythical creature that reminds her a lot of this woman she met in the woods. And when she meets this woman, the woman says, there's a way to save your brothers. There's a way to break this spell. What you have to do is you have to find nettle, you have to gather it, and you have to turn it into thread and make 11 tunics for your brothers. So each one, when the tunic is placed upon them, will turn back into their human form. But you're going to endure a lot of pain from the nettle, and you cannot speak. You must have a vow of silence. For if you speak, laugh, or anything during this time before these shirts are done and on your brothers, they'll die. So she's got a major, major task ahead of her. But when she wakes, she knows that this can be done. She has the answer. She can actually save her brothers from this wild spell. And so she gets to work, and she starts gathering the nettle and making the thread and spinning the thread. And as she's doing this, of course, her hands and her feet from breaking up the stems are just so blistered and red and inflamed, but she continues on. She's devoted to the task because she knows that this will save her brothers, which is all she cares about. And so she continues and she continues. And then, as fairy tales go, she hears a huntsman horn, and some king and men show up at her door. And the king, finds her beautiful and says, come with me, you're going to be my queen. And he just thinks she's this beautiful, mute young woman who's, he has no idea why she's spinning or what's going on, but he takes her and brings her to his palace and has created a little room that looks like the cage she'd been spinning in. And luckily, some of the men brought her the tunics that were completed, and the rest of her nettle that had been turned into yarn. And she continues and just continues. She can't speak. She can't laugh. She continues on her task. And when she gets near the end, she's run out of nettles. So she knows she has to go to the churchyard at night and gather more nettles. And of course, as she does this, the archbishop sees her and is like, she's a witch. We got to get rid of her. She is here to ruin the kingdom. She doesn't speak. All she does is spin. And now she's out at night gathering nettles with the witches, essentially. And so he tells the king. And at first the king is like, I think she's all right. But then he shows the king at night. She's gathering nettles. She's continuing to spin. And so he finally says, okay, let the people decide. And the people, of course, say she's a witch. We need to get rid of her. And on the day that she is about to be executed, she's continuing her task. She's still so devoted to this. She's going to finish. She's continuing. And she ended up getting pretty much all of the tunics done. The final tunic, the 11th tunic, was missing a sleeve. But as she's there, about to be executed, cannot speak, 11 swans fly in, and they surround her. And the crowd is whispering, oh, this must be a good omen. Maybe she is innocent, but no one's really saying anything. It's just whispers. And the swans fly in, and at that moment, she throws these tunics onto them, and they immediately change form and turn back into her brothers. And as this happens, she says, I'm innocent. Now I can speak. And the eldest brother, tells everyone what had happened. And this wicked queen that turned them into these swans and banished Eliza, and what's been going on. And, everyone is thrilled. Sadly, the youngest brother, though, his tunic was not finished. So he maintained one swan wing as a vestige of this enchantment. But the story ends with, of course, a wedding. Well, after all this mania, a wedding procession, and that's the end of the tale. But um, yeah, so I
That was
love this.
so beautifully told,
Oh,
Juliet. This is one of my very favorite tales.
oh,
In
good.
part, I think, because it involves Nettle. And also, do you know, oh my gosh, Daughter of the Forest?
Oh, I
Um,
don't know if I know Daughter of the
yeah,
Forest.
this is like my favorite author, and I'm just like blanking on her name right now.
Okay, I'll find. Okay.
I know it because I've read every
Yes.
single book of hers like 1,000 times.
I hear an average. You're like, it's right there. Yeah.
Well, because I almost want to say it's Juliet Marillier.
Oh,
But
interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's it. Juliet Marillier. But I'm like second guessing myself. Like, is it Juliet?
Right.
Or are you
You're like,
Juliet? I don't know.
who's Juliet? We don't know anymore.
Yeah. She really is my favorite author, so this is just obviously a brain blip. But she
Oh,
wrote
how
Daughter of the
cool.
Forest, which is like
Okay.
a retelling of this tale as well.
Oh,
And
awesome.
it's one of my favorite books of all time, and one of my
Oh,
favorite fairy tales. And so I've read that book probably 7 times, if not more. And I was still like just enraptured listening to you. So
oh,
yeah, thank you.
good.
Thanks for bringing
Thank
the story.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much for saying that. And I definitely, now I really want to, I'm like immediately get that book. I want to read it. So yeah, no, thank you for listening. And I'm glad it was fun. Yeah, it's such a cool fairy tale. Um, but like the way that Nettle shows up, like we know Nettle is a fiber, is a textile. That in itself is a whole world of information and lore and the spinners and all the mythology around spinning. And but what I think is so cool is like that first part of like when she's actually working with the nettle, like the pain of working with the nettle, but this devotion. And I think like there's something around nettle where when you do devote yourself to that plant, it can bring up a lot. It can really shift things a lot. But that devotion piece is really important. It's like committing to working with that plant for, months, years, your lifetime. I think that devotion is really a key piece. And it's such a plant. Well, and then in the next part, the fact that nettle is the savior. Nettle is the plant that breaks the enchantment. Like that alone, that kind of gives me chills. It's like that nettle is the plant that protects and breaks an enchantment. And I feel like that with nettle. It's like, when we're coming back from states of like depletion or just exhaustion, maybe that's just life, maybe that's birth, maybe, illness. Nettle is that plant that restores our vitality over time, that like gently, sometimes, well, I feel like energetically there can be like intense things that come up, but on the body level, it just restores your minerals, your vitamins, your vitality, like who you are. And I think that like nettle has that capacity to just break any enchantments that you have on yourself, or these like things that you no longer need to carry, and just revitalizes you and brings you back to your core, and like allows you to remember who you are and like why you're here. I think nettle, that in itself is a massive enchantment that we often are walking around, without presence or without purpose, without connection. And I feel like nettle is that plant that like really reinstills that. There are a lot of plants that can help with that, but nettle is pretty special. And I love that the story says that. I mean, nettle's it's a hex breaker. It's an enchantment breaker. That's like, pretty powerful, pretty powerful stuff. But,
Yeah, I love that. I love that correlation. I was wondering where you're going to go with that, and I love that of just the hex breaker, and also just how completely restorative it can be for us.
Definitely. Yeah. I just think it's such a powerful plant in those ways.
Hey friends, it's Rosalee. If you've been nourished by this podcast, if it's helped you feel more connected to the plants or more grounded in your own herbal path, then I'd love to invite you to join the Herbs with Rosalee podcast circle. This special membership helps make the podcast possible. It supports everything we do behind the scenes, and it gives you a chance to go even deeper with the content that you love. Inside the circle, you'll get exclusive herbal resources, live classes each season with some of my favorite herbal teachers, and a private space to connect with fellow plant lovers. It's where the heart of our herbal community continues to grow. To learn more and join us, visit herbalpodcastcircle.com. Your support means the world, and It helps this podcast continue to bloom.
Have you I mean, your experiences with nettle, have you found that to be true? Kind of that either on the physical or energetic level, like how it's been helpful for you or?
I feel like right now I can't live without nettle.
Mm.
That's where I'm at in my nettle infatuation stage.
Yeah.
Which, you know, after 25 years of working with this plant, it feels like a cool place to be. Like I've never gotten over nettle. There's been
Yeah.
some ups and downs of just, like the intimacy that we experience together. But
Yeah.
right now, I've been drinking nettle infusions every day, sometimes missing when traveling a bit, but for the most part, drinking nettle every day for many, many months now. Maybe
Yeah.
even approaching a year, actually. And
Yeah.
I think that's the longest that I mostly continuous stretch that I've ever done.
Yeah.
Um, I've often done just seasonal, I'll feel like in the springtime, I'll feel really called to drink lots of nettle.
Yeah.
And then it'll kind of wane as the fall comes. But not this time. I've just been I can't get enough of nettle right now. So that's my feelings. And
Yeah.
brought my nettle infusion.
Nice.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. Mm-hmm. So good. You can feel it. You can feel it revitalizing the body.
Yeah,
you
that's
drink
what it feels
really.
like.
Mm-hmm.
And so every morning, I've actually started drinking it first thing in the morning. It's one of the first things I do after meditation is I go straight off my nettle and drink a little bit of it first thing. And I love that it's I actually got that from a previous podcast I did. Somebody recommended this first thing in the morning. And so now I am.
Oh, that's great.
I think that was Constanza that recommended that, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so it's been just this kind of very big daily ritual for me right now, and it just does feel revitalizing. I feel like my whole body is yes, I need this.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Definitely. Yeah, and like you said, to the seasonal, spring, of course, after sluggish winter, we really feel it. But it is true. It's taking it over long term, months or years, it does become a plant that you're how could I ever not drink you? How could I ever let go of this feeling? So it's pretty wonderful in that way. And I had a very funny relationship with nettle. When I first experienced nettle, I was I immediately had this kind of oh yeah, no, I don't think this is going to be an ally for me. I revere it. It's incredible. This would probably be a really wonderful plant, for my mom or my friend. But I don't know, my constitution, I don't know if this is right. And so for a long time, I kind of had that resistance with nettle. I had this weird block with nettle. But I also think it's that when the student's ready, the teacher arrives. It's I probably wasn't ready to work with nettle at that point for whatever reason. But yeah, so it's kind of funny how that happened. And then all of a sudden, do you know Liz Migliorelli from Sister Spinster is her
I don't
company?
know.
She's an incredible herbalist and flower essence maker and just a folklorist, really fascinating herbalist. But she does, she's where I learned a lot about flower essences. And she had made me a custom essence once, and she had said oh, are there any plants that you don't want in here? And of course, this was years and years ago, nettle popped in, but I was I'm not going to say anything. That's ridiculous. If nettle shows up, great, I need nettle. And so of course it was in the blend, without, it showed up, and I was oh, that's interesting. And then I ended up having some major health stuff, and I think it was mainly caused from depletion, not to go too into the weeds, but I'd done blood work and of course low iron and those things. And I had very reluctantly taken an iron supplement. And I think that was really messed me up. I ended up having a tachycardia episode that put me in the ER. It was a whole horrible thing, but it ended up, I immediately got off of that and just was wait, I'm an herbalist, probably nettle. Why don't I just actually replenish myself with nettle? Duh. And so I started doing that, and I got really excited to commune with nettle. And I was actually in a course where we were going to be working exclusively with nettle for about a month. So I was very excited. Okay, this is the time. I'm ready. And so yeah, I ended up just starting these nettle infusions and have now been drinking them for probably a little over 2 years. And I did. It was that slow and steady where I really felt my body like come back, and I felt that depletion and that like fatigue start to wane, and this like revitalizing energy come back. And there's just something so powerful when that happens. You know, when a plant affects you in that way, it's like you can't ever go back. There's no, it's like, it's such a massive shift. And it was funny too, because I had like randomly gone back and like notes. I found something in my phone, and I had saw that like this happened in 2023, 2024, this whole situation. Yeah. And I found this note about a dream from 2020 where the dream was really lovely. I was like with my partner, my mom, and my daughter, and we were like in this beautiful, warm river at night. There were stars. And then at the end of the dream, like Urtica, dioica was written. I saw it written. And I was like, that's weird. I woke up being like, wow, I wrote it down because I was like, this is very symbolic and interesting, but like, a nettle, you know, at the time, it's like, that's weird. But it's like, now I think like, wow, like had I maybe taken heed or listened to that dream and just been like, I'm going to start taking nettle, who knows, you know, maybe I never would have gone through that kind of depletion or whatever happened. We don't know. But I think that that's just like when the plants start showing up in that way, these little like little nudges. It's like, oh, it's in this essence. Oh, it was in this dream. Oh, it's showing up here. It's like clearly the way that it's communicating that like, okay, it's time. It's time to get rid of whatever barrier you have here and get to work. So
well, who knows if, you know, that state of depletion, it feels like you would have, like, because of that, you fell in love with nettle so hard, you know?
Yeah,
like,
that's true. That's true. It's like a hard way to fall in love. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's like, it is. It was like, you know, for me, a savior herb. Like it really, really, it broke that, that enchantment of feeling really kind of disembodied and like really not like myself. So yeah, very grateful for nettle.
Yeah, one thing that really strikes me about that too is just that nettle is such a like nutritive plant, but one that works in the long term.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, you know, at least work with it for 6 months, you know, turning back to nettle over and over again. It's not one that's like, oh, just like take it once and now done.
Right. Like, all good.
Really, I guess in that way, it's very much a relationship herb, as I think all herbs are.
Yeah.
But I think nettle really invites that deeper relationship.
Yeah, I think so too. It's that's like a beautiful way to put it.
Play. Let's hang out. For a while.
Definitely.
For a long while.
Yeah, it is. It feels like that kind of herb where so many, you know, herbalists and, you know, folks you talk to who love the plants, like nettle is one of those. It's just like, oh, it's in my daily infusion and has been for decades. And it's like, you can understand why. But yeah.
And that way I often feel like it is a community plant. Like I often say that like falling in love with a nettle, you know, long nettle infusion is like a rite of passage within the herbal world. You know, it's something I feel like most people go through, at least, you know, in the grassroots herbalist community. It's like, that's what, you know, is kind of an often like earlier part of our stage of learning, that we learn about it, that we fall in love with nettle infusions, and then we welcome them into our life over and over again. And so it feels like something that like, this would be an interesting poll, but, you know, take a big room of herbalists, 100 people, and, you know, how many of those people have fallen in love with the nettle infusion and had it been a big part of their life?
Yeah, that would be really fun to do. I bet it'd be most of the room. Yeah. I felt so late to the party, you know. I was like, had been really deeply engaged with the plants for a long time when all this happened. So it was funny to be a lot of folks that were in this cohort with me were like, oh, you're so lucky. You get to like, you know, experience nettle in this way. This, like,
it's so true though. And it's so great in our whole world. We get that opportunity. I was like that with a violet. I kind of came to violet later. And it was so much fun of just like, oh, that's why we never get bored, is because there's new plants and new relationships and new insights and
definitely
new ways to play. Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Since we've been talking about the nourishing infusion, you've shared a recipe with us, and let's talk about that. And you call it your heavy nettle daily tonic.
Yes. I tend to work with nettle pretty much daily, have an infusion, and a lot of times it's simple. Sometimes it's just, you know, nettle with a little like licorice root to kind of sweeten it up as a little corrigan. But this recipe, I thought we should do something like extra action packed. I was at first, you know, with recipes, it's so fun to have like really exciting ones. Like I was like, ooh, maybe a puff pastry with nettle and like a
Oh,
sheep's feta or something, which
wow.
sounds lovely, but I need to
I'll
hone
be
in
right
on
over.
that. Yeah, right. I'm like, let's make that. But then I was like, but truly the way I work with it the most, of course, is these infusions. And that's what's been really such a boon in my life. So with this recipe, yeah, it starts out with nettle. So it's primarily nettle. Um, and then I add a bit of oat straw. With nettle, obviously, it's like nature's vitamins. So we're getting so many vitamins, so many minerals like magnesium and calcium and iron, and just so much. And then we've got oat straw, which has like silica and calcium and magnesium, but also is like a really gentle nervine and so soothing. And so it's adding in even more vitamins and minerals. And then I love to add some rose hips. I love rose hips in almost pretty much everything. For their, I love the taste, that kind of sour, sweet, and that like it feels like velvety to me, like the mouthfeel of like especially a cold infusion or just like rose hips once they've gotten cold, it just feels like so velvety and delicious. And it also is helpful with that vitamin C um, in the rose hips, helps you absorb, the iron in the nettle with like, any non-heme like plant irons, they can be harder to absorb. So that vitamin C from the rose hips really helps that process, and the vitamin C that's already in nettle. But yeah, so that's really helpful. And then I like to add sometimes a little bit of that licorice just to add a little bit of sweet. And it, of course, has all of its own benefits. But in this, I tend to just use a little and for that taste. But this is just like a really nice blend to just treat as like your daily vitamin and mineral source. Even my little one likes it. She's luckily developed a taste for for herbs. So she's tried, she drinks it and likes it. But yeah, it's a nice flavor. I feel like the rose hips and if you use licorice, but even just the rose hips on their own kind of offset a bit of like the earthiness. I know like sometimes nettle can be like, oh, it's not everyone's like favorite taste. For some people it is. For me, I now have grown to love it on its own. But the rose hips are a nice addition there. And then for me, I love it. I love to brew it for 4 to 8 hours and then stick it in the fridge, strain it and stick it in the fridge because I like cold drinks. And I especially love this one cold.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a tasty daily tonic. And you
Yeah,
can like just mix and match so much too with whatever plants, you're wanting.
yeah, I'd love this. My staple every day is like 3/4 nettle, 1/4 oat straw.
Oh,
So
great.
I'm already, but adding
Yeah.
rose hips, I have done that before, but it's not something I've been doing at all recently. And now I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I want to do that because as soon as you talked about that velvety mouthfeel, I was like, oh yeah, I know that. It's
Mm-hmm.
sweet. So
It's so good. Yeah. Like just cold infusion rose hips, like, oh yes, so
yeah.
good. So yeah, they're a nice addition. But yeah, it's a fun one to have, and it's, so simple to make and just such a lovely like ritual to just do for yourself. It's that, yeah, way to really take care of yourself, and you're getting to do it on your own, which I always just, find so empowering to be able to be like, wow, like I can, grow these plants, or I can obtain these plants from a lovely, local organic farm, and I can create this beautiful drink that's going to support my my vitamins, my minerals, my vitality. It's pretty special.
Yes, and it's, as we said, it's a drink to fall in love with day after
Yeah.
day after day. And for the listener, you can download your beautifully illustrated copy of this recipe either by going to herbswithrosaliePodcast.com and looking for this episode, or just check out the show notes. It's in there as well. And thank you so much, Juliet, for sharing that recipe with us.
Oh, thank you. And thank you. I know those beautiful recipe cards. I feel so honored to.
They are very fun.
They're
Tatiana
so cool.
is our botanical illustrator. She creates those. And then Jenny is our
Beautiful.
graphic designer and puts it all together. And yeah, I love them too. Yeah,
That's
it's
so
just
great.
super fun thing to do.
Yeah,
Um,
it's wonderful.
yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to share with about nettle before we move
Yeah.
on?
I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many things like what we are talking about. I think it's worth giving nettle for everyone to give nettle a try for at least 3 months, 3 to 6 months longer to give it a go. But one thing that I thought was kind of fun, we were talking a lot about like textiles and nettle, like within the story. is that have you ever done like a plant dye with nettle?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so it was very fascinating to me how nettle showed up, the colors that it provided. It's this like, I'm gonna show if it'll come through, this like very beautiful kind of luscious golden color,
Yeah.
which for me was just so unexpected with such a verdant plant.
Mhm.
And I found it really interesting too because in a lot of I do a lot of like plant sits and kind of plant meditation with like either just tasting the plant or an essence or a tincture. And with nettle, like a message that I was given once was like a giver of golden time, which I thought was such a beautiful way of thinking of nettle. Because again, it's like golden time. Like, what is that? And I think of it as like a time where you do feel vital and you feel present and you feel alive. And that is what nettle does for us. And I thought it was so cool to see that signature show up in a plant dye that like this plant I would never expect to turn this like golden yellow just did that. I love when those little nuances happen where you're like, oh wow, gold. And now it makes me want to go down like a gold rabbit hole of like the symbolism of gold and nettle and how those two interact. But yeah, so I'd say just with nettle, try it, enjoy it, you know, in all ways and forms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that about the
Yeah.
dye. Thank you for the story. And yes, all the love that we're pouring into this wonderfully nutritious plant.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I would love to talk about your book, which I
Um,
adore. Uh,
thank you.
yeah, this is such a beautiful book. The illustrator did such a lovely
Oh,
job, both in the artistry and also there's so much to see in here. There's so
hmm.
many different little like I'm trying to think of the frames have
Yeah.
a lot going on in them that's like almost like a like insider's look, like if what's
Yeah.
going on, you can take a look at those. Like one of my favorites was elder,
Oh, yes.
and then having like where we go here, having like the wood and then the flute,
Hmm.
it's like if you know elder, there's like
Yeah.
so many things in there that we can think about, the little berries strung up on top. I'm probably getting ahead of myself though. Let's just start back from the beginning. This is a book that you wrote, A Girl's
Yeah.
Whose Garden Comes Alive. What inspired you to write a children's book in the first place?
Yeah. I mean, a lot had to do with like my daughter. At the time, kind of the inklings of the book were coming in. She was like 4 or 5. Um, and she's a big inspiration, of course, like growing up with me, like she's out in the yard a lot and knew very young she was, how to find plantain and yarrow. And like her first story was actually like, I think she was 2, and she got stung by a bee and her dad had ice and I went and found plantain and like she would tell people that story. And so I just she was a big inspiration. She was like at kindergarten giving she called herby consults where she would like tell her friends
Oh my gosh, I
what
love
things
that
were.
so much.
I know. It's pretty great. And so she was a big inspiration. So like, yeah, the story in the book with the bee sting is her story. The character's named Freya, which is her name. So not a big jump. But yeah, so she was a big inspiration is her and really just thinking about, the magic of childhood and how so often as we grow and we, have to deal with the difficulties of life and that a lot of that magic and that wonder can be lost. So in writing this, the inspiration was to really like, really just like, I don't even want to say bring back magic because for children, I think the magic is closer to them. It's there, but to really like solidify that magic and that connection to the plant world. And also secretly hoping that like the parents and caregivers and grandparents who are reading it are, like, ooh, are getting excited too. But yeah, I wanted it to be a really simple way for children to be able to connect with plants that grow pretty abundantly in a lot of places. So really a focus on kind of backyard herbalism with, plants like yarrow and plantain and there's lavender and elder and
every plant in here
lemon
is my
balm.
favorite plant. Like every single one.
It was so hard too because they're
Everyone.
all so great. And then nettle did not show up in the book. I would of course love that, but I was like, I can't. When I kept writing, I was like, I got to stop at a certain like a manageable amount of plants. So we just ended up with 7. But it's just all about teaching children. In the book, the main character, the plants start talking to her, so she starts to understand these plants and the gifts that they offer. But it's also just about building reciprocal relationships. So in each chapter where she meets each plant, she's always bringing a gift, and then at the end of each chapter, you get to do like a recipe or a preparation that was in that chapter. And then by the end of the book, there's some fun, like mindful ways for kids to connect with plants, whether it's just through their senses, or breathing with a plant or drawing a plant, just fun ways to start to deepen that connection. But yeah, and the illustrator Danielle, I just like what you were saying. I got so lucky. I was so picky. I knew the look and feel I wanted for the book, and I just was like, maybe I have some art talent. And I was like, I'll just try. I was like, no, what am I thinking? I can't, no way. So I was like, immediately was like, I need to find an artist. And it was so hard. I was just scanning through all sorts of sites and Instagram and all these places. And when I came upon her work, I was just like, oh, this is so beautiful. And, who knows if this will happen, but ended up reaching out. And luckily she was interested in the project. And she was like, I won't be able to do this for, I think it was like 6 or 8 months or something like that. But I was like, cool, whenever you can do it, I'm in, because she's an herbalist in her own right. And cool. And just like so connected to the land where she is. She's in England. And again, just what I love about her artwork is all of that symbolism that's imbued, like you said, on those borders. It's like, ooh, if you know, and I had ideas for the pictures, but I was like, I trusted her pretty completely because her work is stunning. And that elder image was actually the first image she showed me completed. And I was like, oh, wow, blown away. Yeah.
Wow,
like,
oh, that's so fun.
So it's pretty special. And then,
here we have the yarrow, and you talked about the Achilles heel in the story. So we have that. That's like, if you know,
Yeah.
I feel I'm going to like maybe just like go over some of the things you said, but I wanted to because it's the things I love about this book as well. So each chapter is like its own little mini essay about plant medicine that's delightful and joyful and fun, with, the medicinal things. And I love that all of the challenges that Freya comes up against is very relatable for a kid, from bee stings to having an overactive mind at night to being grumpy and annoyed. The first time I read this, I was grumpy and annoyed that day. And then she finds lemon balm, and I was like, okay, I hear you.
You're like, all right, okay.
I get it. So yeah, there's just so many different layers, and I absolutely adored the reciprocal aspect of it. I loved the stones, and then I just loved that there was dancing and singing as reciprocity too, which I found so joyful. And then it was like when I couldn't love the book anymore, I loved the ending of the connection practices, which that was really lovely too, and just how you tied that into here's how we can communicate with plants. So there's just all these different layers to this book, from just being gorgeous to being the story being engaging and informative and fun and joyful. So it's absolutely lovely.
Thank you. That means so much. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
And then you just got this herbalist on the back saying,
no biggie.
This book is the perfect way to teach children about the healing power of plants in a way that is enchanting and practical. Rosemary Gladstar.
That was, one of those like dreams where I was like, oh wow, what if Rosemary could read this and say something? And so I was just, of course, again, like with the magic around this book, like getting Danielle to, be the artist, and having Rosemary Gladstar not only read it, but like say such beautiful things about the book. I mean, it just, my heart, just melted. So I feel so grateful for that. It just, And I know she's, so kind and is I wasn't shocked that she would do something like that for someone, she doesn't doesn't
I
really
noted
know.
earlier when you
But
said you studied with Rosemary's program, like how your face lit up. And I was like, I hope every one of us, that's how our face looks whenever we think or talk about Rosemary. It's just our face
yeah.
lights up.
Yes. I mean, what a gift to the world to like
Yeah.
create that feeling for people. Yeah. So it was just such too like a cyclical moment where it's like that
Mhm.
her program is really what set me on a more dedicated plant path. And so to be able to like, 10 years later have her, read this book, it just means so much. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for sharing this with the world. And I highly recommend that people buy it. I don't have young kids in my life right now. And I needed to read this book for the lemon balm in it. So I think it's worthy
Well,
of
thank
everybody
you.
out there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And where's the best place for people to find your book and you?
Yeah, they can find it at it's very long, thegirlwhosegardencomes alive.com. That is a great place because you can just order it like directly from me. And there's also like an email form if you want to get in touch. That's a nice little spot to do it. I'm on Instagram under Day Moon Botanicals. I am a fair weather social media person, which I always feel like I need to commit or leave. I need to do one or the other because I'm a little wishy-washy there. So the website's probably the best place to get a hold of me.
Good. We'll be sure to get that in the show notes as well.
Thanks. Yeah.
Well, before you go, I have one last question for you. That is, what's something that the herbs have taught you that maybe you weren't looking to learn?
I love this question. I mean, many things. But the first thing that pops up is that we're never alone and that we are deeply connected and interwoven into the natural world. We are the natural world. We forget that, but we are a huge part of it and we are connected. And I think of it, it's like when you're getting to know plants, kind of think of it like if you're in a big crowd of people and then you see a couple friends and you're just like, oh, there's my friends. Yay. Okay, great. And it's like that with plants. It's like once you start seeing them, that green wall, becomes a space that's like holding these dear friends that have impacted your life in these beautiful ways. And there's a story I think of where like a few years ago, I got to go on this trip to England. And I was with a group of people that I didn't know, but I went. And leading up to the trip and in the beginning of the trip, there were a lot of things that were happening where I was like, I don't know if this was the right decision. Were these bad omens? Was this the universe telling me not to go? Also, my daughter Freya was, much younger at the time. I had like guilt around that, and but I felt this call to go on this trip. And was lucky to be in a space to be able to do that. And I got to the place, and like I said, I had these like, I don't know if this was right. And so I immediately went on a walk, and it was like, beautiful English countryside, and went on this walk alone, and immediately saw like hawthorn, and I saw mugwort, and I saw red clover, and I saw yarrow, and it was like nervous system just complete reset. It was like, wow, like my friends are here, like I'm okay. Like no matter what, like I am connected to this place. I know these plants, they know me. It doesn't matter where they are in the world. It's like you feel that sense of familiarity and depth and care, and that like that being connected and cared for. And so that really shifted things for me. And then, of course, the trip was great. It was fine. There were hiccups, as there always are. But it was like the trip itself after that was great. The people were wonderful. The experiences were wonderful. And it was so, just great to also be reminded that like, how held and how connected and how truly interwoven we are with these plants and with our natural surroundings. And so, yeah, I think that that's a big lesson that you might not expect to learn especially when you're starting out and you're like, materia medica and all these terms and what so many plants, is that like such a huge lesson from the plants is that like you're part of this, and they're here to take care of us and we're here to take care of them. And it's this beautiful relationship that we get to be a part of. That's pretty, just a remarkable and beautiful thing to remember.
That is a beautiful thing to remember.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I've had a very similar experience too of,
Oh, nice. Was it when you were traveling or?
Yeah, and absolutely. And finding plant friends and just being, oh, okay, nervous system reset. We're all good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're all good. You're here.
Yeah, it is. And it sounds probably, like silly to someone who hasn't encountered that, but like it really does. It feels like you're seeing your friends. It feels like you can, have a sigh of relief. You're like, oh, okay, ooh, we're good. I got this.
It's been so long for me now that there's actually, like, I just talked to somebody the other day who didn't know plants at all. And in my mind, I was like, I'm not coming from like a judgy place. I mean, maybe kind of, sort of, but in my mind, I'm like, how do you live?
Right.
Without knowing the plants around you. Like that perception and that just like way of walking through the world feels so alien to me now to not know, the plants.
Which is like, such a gift. Because I think about that too. It's like when I was younger, when I didn't know, like, what was I doing to deal with this or that? Or, all these different things that like, when you get to know the plants, you have these gifts, these things that they offer, and this like sense of empowerment of like knowing like, oh wow, this is happening. I can talk to this friend that's a plant and they will help me through this. I mean, that's a pretty invaluable gift. And so it's good to be reminded that like not everyone has that. And that's why it's so important for herbalists to get out there and spark that in folks. So
that reminds me, like several years ago, I went back to where I was raised, and I hadn't been back really since I had become an herbalist. So it had been a couple decades.
Oh,
and I went
wow,
back and I remember just seeing mullein, and I remember thinking like, whoa, in the day I had no idea that was mullein and that mullein was here. And it was just kind of this like recognition that like, I really didn't know the plants then, so it was just kind of, but they were there all along, I was like blind to them, back then. So it was a really interesting thing. Just like, oh, I've always been surrounded by these friends.
Exactly. Yeah, that perspective shifts because like they probably, they knew you. They were like, oh, and then you get to come back and be like, yes, you were here. You were here when I was young and providing. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Well, thank you so much, Juliet, for being here again, for sharing your gifts with the world, this beautiful book, and for sharing just, the love of folklore and story with Nettle. It's just been absolutely lovely to spend time with you.
Oh, agreed. It's been so, so wonderful. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. And I hope we can get together and make some nettle pastry of some kind, or some nettle infusions, a nettle day.
Yeah, you had me at nettle.
Okay, good.
I'm in.
Let's do this.
Sounds lovely. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. You can download your illustrated recipe card from today's episode. Just head to herbswithrosaleepodcast.com or check out the show notes for a link. If you're not already subscribed, I'd love to have you as part of this herbal community so I can deliver even more herbal goodies your way. This podcast is made possible in part by our awesome, amazing, incredible students. This week's student spotlight is on Emily Lee in Ohio. Emily is a long-term member of our herbal community. I often see her in class, and she's joined us in courses like cooling inflammation, building resilience, herbal energetics, and now the podcast circle and our new course, Grow. She brings a thoughtful and grounded approach to her learning, along with a strong sense of curiosity and care for the people around her. She's especially active in live events and community spaces where her practical questions and shared experiences help deepen the conversation for everyone. From revisiting herbs like ashwagandha with fresh awareness to experimenting with herbal recipes inspired by podcast episodes, Emily's learning is both personal and generously shared. Her steady presence and willingness to engage make her a meaningful part of the community and a beautiful example of how herbalism can grow over time through both practice and connection. To honor her contributions, Mountain Rose Herbs is sending Emily a $50 gift certificate to stock up on their incredible selection of organically and sustainably sourced herbal supplies. Thank you so much, Mountain Rose Herbs, for supporting our amazing students. And if you'd like to deepen your skills as an herbalist, you can check out my foundational courses at herbswithrosalee.com. Okay, you've made it to the end of the show, which means you get a gold star and this herbal tidbit. Well, at the end of this episode, I want to leave you with something to look for next time you meet Nettle out in the wild. So not all nettles are the same. Most of us are familiar with Urtica dioica as a species, but there are other species too, like Urtica gracilis or Urtica urens, which you'll find in parts of North America. And there's even varieties out there that barely sting or don't sting at all. It's incredible when you find those. So, what's growing near you? Also, here's another layer to that. Nettle isn't just important for us, it's a vital host plant for several butterfly species. So that means without nettle, their caterpillars simply couldn't survive. So entire life cycles depend on these plants quietly growing along the edges of fields and trails. So next time you brush up against nettle, or perhaps even get stung by it, you might pause and wonder not just what it offers you, but who else is relying on it too. As always, thanks for joining me. I'll see you in the next episode.